Bonjour, everyone. Hi, this is Neshi Lokotz. Welcome to Spirit of Color on Star Nations Radio Network here on Facebook live stream. You know, we're powered by our partners at Be Live TV, and we like those guys because we can do really kind of cool things with our shows and our interviews. And so I just wanted to welcome everybody who are coming into the chat room. Thank you very much for being here. And for those who will be watching it by the recorded show, the video, we want to thank you to do that too. You know, one of the things that we like about Be Live and being live stream is we can reach so many more people. And with your help, we can even reach a lot more people. And by doing that, if you wouldn't mind, please, to share and like our show. And I've got my phone here, and Minnie, one of the co-hosts, also has her stuff going, and she's going to do the like and share for us too. So if you could do that for us, we really would appreciate it. And the reason why we even ask you to do that is because social media, specifically Facebook, you know, their logarithms are kind of a world all unto themselves, really. And we found out that that sharing and liking and commenting on the broadcast really helps us to be into the news feed. And so that way we can reach a lot more people. So we really appreciate you doing that. Okay. All right. Tonight is a kind of a special Spirit of Color show.
Yeah, she's sorry to interrupt you. They're not seeing you for some reason. I just checked in the chat room.
Huh. Okay.
You can help me figure that out.
Hang on. Let me do something here for me. You're going to see me probably disappear just for a second, okay? And I'm going to check my camera.
So were they able to hear her?
Let's ask Rob. Have you been able to hear Neshi's opening? We've got Rob. There she is. Okay, she's back in the lobby. Let me bring her up. She's coming up.
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me and can you see me?
Rob can hear you but not see yet.
Well, isn't that interesting? It says, okay, so did you take the cover off from the... Oh, we just lost Donna. Bonjour, everyone. Hi, this is Neshi Lokotz. That's us. Okay, at least you can hear my voice. When Donna comes back, Donna, if you could check, you know, preview section up where it has the cover on, did you take that cover off?
No.
Yeah, you got to slide the button.
That's what I did, and then we got the intro played again. I did that.
Okay, and so you should have me on solo, and then remove the cover. Yeah?
Yeah, that should do it.
Okay, and so Donna, can you see me in the preview? On the right-hand side?
Yeah, we're in the live window now. So you should...
Okay, all right. So we're going to check in with our audience. So, especially Rob. Rob, can you see me now?
I just asked.
Rob is our stage manager behind the scenes.
Hello, Rob.
Yes.
Rob, yay, we got it.
Okay,
cool.
So
very good. All right. So you probably heard what I said. You just didn't see me saying it. And that was, if you could just please love or like and share the broadcast, that'd be really, really helpful. So we're gonna bring the rest of the hosts on. So tonight, you know, Spirit of Color, we have 3 hosts, right? 3 of us. And Minnie Kansman comes to us from Michigan. Minnie, come on out. And there's Donna.
Hi, everybody.
Donna, you can just bring us on. That's easier. And then Donna Thompson, and she is from New York.
What am I doing?
Okay, so in the preview section, there we go. All right. The thing is that when you produce only one time every 3 months or so, you're just not, used to,
Right.
Right? And so you're doing good, Donna. We're fine. We're fine. And as my computer's talking to me about wanting to do an update, I don't think so. No. So welcome everybody to the Spirit of Color on Star Nation's Radio Network here on Facebook live stream. And we're powered by our partners at Be Live TV. So tonight is all about Spirit of Color. And we are embracing, I'm going to say it again, embracing a very challenging topic, one that I think the three of us debated about when we were planning out our year of shows, right? And because one of the topics, what we try to do is match up our topics to the upcoming issue of the magazine. And in the upcoming issue of Star Nations magazine, one of the topics is diversity. And we were thinking, so how do we do this with Spirit of Color? Because we have done so many shows about artistry and nature. And so how do we bring diversity into a show called Spirit of Color? Well, we're going to touch on a subject that is kind of, like I said, challenging. It can be uncomfortable for some people. We're going to be talking about, and I titled the show, The Color of Nations. And the reason why I did that is because we're going to talk about us, humans, the human race, humankind, and all shades of colors in between light and dark. And what does that mean for us as humans, right? Living here on Grandmother Earth, and many of us remember our connection to all of our other relatives, such as trees and stones and grass and water and
Birds.
And birds. Can't forget birds. And birds. And so tonight we're going to be talking about humankind and the shades in between. And in the promo, what I called it was, in ancient traditions and beliefs, each nation on earth was responsible for the earth and to each other. And that's how we're going to approach this subject, because truly in my heart, I know that we are more alike than we are different. And when you look at even our DNA, right, we're like 98 point something percent alike. It's that 0.02% that we're different. And yet we spend a whole lot of time on that 0.02%. And so tonight we're gonna focus on the other 98.8%. Or something like that. Or something like that. Rob, do the math for me, would you? He's really good at this. So with that, one of the things I'm going to do for us is I would like to open the show with our sacred space. And I want to explain a little bit about it before I actually get started. When I call in the directions, it is to each of the cardinal points, right? And within the cardinal points, there are some tribal nations here on Turtle Island, North America, that believe within the medicine wheel, each of the directions is represents one of the races of humankind. And so we're going to be calling in the ancestors of each one of those directions, and as they represent. And for that, I know she's kind of big, but this is my 22-inch. I'm going to back up just a little. My 22-inch buffalo drum. And buffalo is very big medicine. And so we're going to call in the directions using the buffalo. And so if you would please join me, it would be nice if you can turn in the directions, that's fine. If you can't, just in your mind and your heart, place your thoughts in the directions, okay? And we'll get the show started with calling in the directions. Hang on. Got to move the ribbons. There we go. All right. Just connecting to the drum, the spirit of the drum. Mauna, Earthmaker, creator of all things, we humbly ask for your presence in our sacred circle here tonight on Spirit of Color, as we share about and discuss a rather uncomfortable topic, which is the color of nations, the races, the colors of the human race here on Earth. And we ask you to please come to join us and to be with us tonight. And we ask you to please come. Miigwech, thank you. And we call to the spirit of the East, the spirit of thought, the spirit of yellow, the spirit of the ancient ones that come from the Oriental race, those ancestors that can help us to understand and to have compassion for each other as we talk about this topic about diversity and finding how we're similar. And we ask you to please come. Miigwech, thank you. And we call to the spirit of the South, the spirit of fire, the spirit of the color red, and the ancestors that lie in that direction that represent the indigenous here on Turtle Island in North and South America. The Native American, my ancestors, we ask you to please come to join us to help us to understand and have compassion for each other as we share about diversity and the races of humankind. And we ask you to please come. Miigwech, thank you. And we call to the spirit of the West, the spirit of water, the spirit of emotion, and we ask the ancestors that come from that direction of the color black, the spirit of color black, those who come from the African nation, the ancestors that can help us to understand and be compassionate with each other as we discuss and share about diversity and the race of humankind. And we ask you to please come, to please join us. Miigwech, Iguian. Call to the spirit of the North, the spirit of the stone people, the spirit of the color white. We humbly ask for you to please join us tonight. Those in our ancestry that represent the European, the Caucasian. We please ask you to join us so that we can understand and help us to be compassionate with each other as we share about the topic of diversity. And we ask you to please come. Miigwech, thank you, Iguian, for coming. We also call to Grandmother Earth. Grandmother, we ask you to please join us tonight, to please be with us, all of your children, all the way from our ancestors to us, to our descendants. We ask you to please be with us tonight, to help us to stay grounded, to hug us, to hold us close. And we give you thanks. And we love you for providing everything for us. And we ask you to please come. Miigwech, thank you. Thank you, Grandmother. We also call to our guides, guardians, angels, teachers, allies, power animals, all of our allies to please be with us tonight as we share about this topic about diversity, and to remember that we're all related, that we're all connected, and that we learn about each other so that we can embrace the commonalities rather than the differences. And we thank you for coming. Yvette, how? Oh, well, that was interesting.
Nice.
I have to say that's the first time I've ever called in the directions using the colors in that way, because usually when I teach about the medicine wheel, really the colors aren't static. They don't stay in one place for all Native nations across America, right? Because there's many nations that would put the colors in the different directions. For instance, some put the red in the north and the white in the south. So if that's your belief, please, just know that we called in the ancestors of each of those directions. And there's even some that may not even attribute one of those colors to one of the human races. Some who know about the medicine wheel from their own culture, because there's so many variations of the medicine wheel and the understanding of it, that they may not even place the distinction of the race between those colors on the medicine wheel. So for tonight, though, that we're asking for their help, for their assistance in helping us to understand and to be compassionate with each other. And also to remember that we're all related. So, and the medicine wheel is an ancient way of understanding our environment, our world. It helps us because it's kind of like a map, an energetic map. And the medicine wheel helps us to put those things into a place where our mental minds can understand it, integrate it, embrace it. At a soul level, we so get it. We don't even need the stones, the trees, or anything like that, because at our soul level, we truly understand it. It's the remembering, that human part of us, our brain, that needs the nudge and the, I don't know, maybe it's a good mnemonic or our cliff note or something like that to help us to remember, right? And for those of you who haven't studied the medicine wheel, when you take a look at it, many times what I'm told is that there's something about it that is comforting. And because we recognize it, you recognize it at a soul level. And so that's always a good thing, right? Right. So, this is, I've been looking forward to the show, but the day has been so dang busy that it went by like that. And I wanted to make sure that I'm all here, that all aspects of me that's been flying around all day is here. So I'm just taking a second to ask my spiritual team to come in and to help me with the discussion. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. So ladies, when we first started talking about this topic months ago, actually it was only a couple months ago, how did you feel about bringing this to Spirit of Color? Because it's not one of our typical topics for our show. And checking in with your comfort level and how that felt to you when we agreed to have this topic. And if we could start with Minnie, that would be great.
Hey, thanks. I guess thinking about people as color is a little different for our show to separate them that way. But there's a lot of prejudice and there's a lot of bias related to that keeps us from being that big oneness that we are, that gets in people's ways sometimes of their opinions. And so I think it's a really important topic to talk about, and maybe to get other people even just to begin thinking about where they might be more inclusive in their lives. So I'm hoping that we create a spark there for that as well. It's a beautiful topic. I think we need to be talking about more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Me too. Got my fingers crossed. Thank you for that, Minnie. And what about you, Donna? How did you feel?
I remember feeling that it would be a very timely thing to talk about, because there's just been so much in our news here in the U.S. In particular, but globally, if you're following what's going on to all different countries and groups of people, to me it seems very obvious that there's a lot going on that has all to do with race.
Yeah.
And it's bubbling, right? Many of us have the sense it's bubbling up. It's it's been suppressed, denied, hidden for so long, and now it's just, you can't do that anymore. And a lot of why that's not possible is right here. Look at us on Facebook Live. We have cell phones. We have the technology. We can share information. And so
right.
It's the time.
It's time.
Or maybe time's up, right?
That too.
That's what I remember thinking, like, wow, that's going to be really timely and good for us. Maybe edgy, but it's important to talk about.
Yeah, I like that word, edgy, because we generally stay in an area of topics that we're comfortable with. Generally speaking,
and then
that we really know about.
Yeah.
And so I'm just glad that you guys agreed to it and are willing to jump into it. So I wanted to thank you for that, because it does take a bit of courage and a bit of chutzpah to, women with some gumption to take on the topic, right? Yeah. So Donna, if you could bring up the picture of the medicine wheel. This was the best one that we've used before to help people kind of understand the cardinal directions and what they kind of cover. And remember that there's 567 different tribal nations recognized by the federal government. And each one of those nations have a different way of interpreting or describing the medicine wheel. So this is just one of many, okay? One of many. So it's helpful. So if you can look at how each one of the directions has a way of representing the energies in each one of those quadrants, right? And then from what I was taught is that each one of those quadrants in those colors also represents mankind. And when it shows us on the wheel of life. And so we're all together, we're working together, integrated into this. And in the center is the creator. And so all of our energies actually goes into the center as one. And that's what Minnie was talking about, is that oneness, that unity. And so, and I was taught that the yellow represented the East or the Oriental race, and that it had a lot to do with a lot of thought, mental thought. And for me, that's where the energy of the wind comes from, right? And then for the South, or here they have it in red, and they have the emotion there. We have fire in there. That's Potawatomi. But anyway, that we were responsible for the physical and also the spiritual energy of Earth. And so that's why you see a lot of Native nations here in the United States feeling very responsible for Grandmother Earth, for Mother Earth, and taking care of her. But on an energetic or spiritual basis, we're very connected to that. And so when you get to the Black or the African, is really about the emotion in it. They too, because that is the belief that's the cradle of humanity, right? That's where everything sprung from. And so having the responsibility about creation. And for the North, in this case, is the Caucasian. The white is really about that is where we place a lot of the historical wisdom in the community. And how I teach the medicine wheel is where the community is in the North. And so when you take a look at our ancestors coming from the European continents, is that, that they were the first ones to really bring together into communities and to do those things like the modern things like printing, and although Chinese started that, right? We're talking about the printing press. But, with the Caucasian, it has a lot to do with garnering, bringing all of that energy of knowledge base together and then sharing it and disseminating it, right? So that's how I kind of look at the medicine wheel in a way that it brings us all together, all of our gifts that we were given by the Creator, designated by the race that we came into this lifetime. By design, we chose to come in this way, right? And so to be able to pick up part of that is our responsibility by the race that we chose to come to be in. And so that is the medicine wheel and how I look at it when it comes to races. You know what my grandfather, my Misho, used to say about this? He told me that when you have a bouquet of flowers and you have all different colors and shapes and sizes, and he says that's like us, that's like humans, because we're represented by all of the colors and all of the shapes and all of the design, and he said, and when you bring them all together, look how beautiful it is. Yeah, those bouquets. And so that is that's how I look at it. So, you can take the picture down now, Donna, thank you. We can't talk about diversity without talking about race. It's kind of like, that one goes in hand with the other. When you talk about diversity, you have to take a look at the quality, at least, of race. And so, Minnie, how do you feel about races, how it's handled right now by our national leaders, our local leaders, and maybe even down to the community, your own township kind of thing? How do you see that being handled?
Well, for me, having Barack Obama as our past president, that was a big leap forward for us as a nation, to see a leader as a Black man. I think it's a very positive role model for everyone. I think there's individual communities that have a lot to learn. It seems like the cities are more diversified. And as you get into the more rural areas, depending on where you are, there will be an ethnic group that kind of holds the energy for that community.
Oh, true.
Whether you're in the South or you're in the North, or but in my own town, it's mainly Caucasian, and it's a lot of Catholic Caucasian. And that was one of the pieces when I started to look at this diversity piece was that there was a religious component that can go along with the color as well. Not always, but there are spiritual beliefs that go with a certain ethnic group. And so it gives you a whole nother layer to look at. So I'm looking at white Catholics where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like growing up, I lived in a very rural white community. I didn't see hardly any diversity until I went to college. And then there was a lot all at once.
Yeah.
And so, but for me, it was exciting. It was fun. It was like, finally, I get to meet the world, because I felt like I was cocooned in a little corner on my own. And I really wanted that knowledge. So for me, it was very fun. But I do see that we're pocketed away in our different states and our different communities.
Yeah.
Except for the larger cities,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And even in the larger cities, I think that you get into neighborhoods and boroughs and, where you kind of congregate more with your own
kind,
your own people, peeps. And some of that is a comfort area,
mm-hmm.
And which I totally understand. But I hear you about the more rural areas compared to the city. And now we're going to ask Donna the same question, because Donna has an experience with both rural and city. So,
Okay, so I'll answer briefly the very first part of your question. How do I feel about how race is being handled right now by our national government? I don't feel good at all about what's going on. I have a lot of daily concerns. So that being said, I also think there's a lot of good coming out of it, and there'll be more good. But I've had a very challenging year in the last year with the changes in Washington. But I have an interesting perspective that I grew up in a very small town in upstate rural New York. I think the population was something like maybe 500 when I was growing up, and very small. And it was surrounded by about 3 or 4 other little towns just about the same size, and we all went to one K through 12 high school. I graduated 41 people, maybe 40.
41?
Yes.
Wow.
Under 45, this I remember. And more than half of those kids I had been in school with since kindergarten. I had known my whole life.
Wow.
All under one roof, K through 12. So that was my upbringing. Just to give even a little more perspective, my mom and my dad had looking back, and even at the time I was quite aware, my mom was much more liberal and progressive than my dad. My mom was a registered Democrat. My dad was a registered Republican. My dad was also a World War II veteran, and he had that whole perspective, bias, whatever, life experience, whatever you want to call it. That's what he brought to the table. Also, that being said about my dad, in a lot of ways, he was not as open to other, even local ethnicities, like you asked on a local level. I mean, I remember some comments that he would make growing up about, the Catholics in Wyndham, like, Dad, Presbyterian, we were good Presbyterians. But it just came from a very small world view. Like it just, he probably heard that growing up, or he, whatever. And it was often in a moment of anger, it wasn't really who he was, and yet it would come out. So from a very young age, I would wrestle with, what's right and what's true. And I just always knew that, like that. I knew what was true. I knew that we were all one, and we had different beliefs. But what also I've grown to appreciate, just to not completely throw my dad under the bus. Is that, once you get older, you have a bigger perspective on things.
Right.
So So my dad was in World War II, but he actually enlisted. He kept missing the draft, and he enlisted when everyone around was saying, "Don't do it, don't do it," because it was a horrible war, and men were dying left and right. And if they weren't dying, they were coming home, maimed and injured. And so he went off to that war, and I think he was a very sensitive soul in a lot of ways, and he for sure had severe PTSD from that war. So even though here's a man who enlisted to go be of service and help the European Jews and stop the spread of the Nazis, once he got back home and was back in the world he knew, he had a different perspective on it. So anyway, I just offer that as someone who I grew up with disparaging views within the home of dad saying something and mom saying the other, and going to a school where there was one black kid my whole high school, and I think two other, dark brown Hispanic kids. I mean, that was it. So like Minnie, when I went off to college, all of a sudden I was exposed to a lot of people, and I purposely picked a really diverse college because I was ready to go. I wanted out. I wanted to see the colors of humanity, and I wanted a different perspective. I was tired of this, small town view of things. And now, however many years, 30 years later, I still live in New York State, but I live in the New York metro area, I live in the suburbs of New York City, where it's really quite diverse. And on a local government level here, I'm actually very proud of our local government and how we embraced diversity, throughout the neighboring towns, and what I see the kids doing in school. It's quite progressive here. So that brings me comfort as well. But it's also been quite an awakening in the last year to see that how much I've been in my own little bubble here on the East Coast, and how it's such a big, large country, and there's just very different views across the country, and we have a long way to go to come together. We have a lot of wounds to heal just from the last year as a nation of this, divisive election, and a lot of wounds that we need to acknowledge, like what we have done to Native American people and continue to do to Native American people, and our whole history with slavery is at the root of much of this. And until we come to terms with that and deal with that, we're going to continue to argue about surface things, that we need to heal.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, continue to argue about the 0.02%, that we're different.
Right.
Talk about energy allocation, right? Where do you want to put your energy, and you want to put it into the smallest part that we're different. Some people. For me, I did grow up in a small town, and actually rural area, Wisconsin Dells. In the off season, because it's a very touristy place. In the off season, it was basically mostly Caucasian with Native American, because that area is one of the traditional home places for the Ho-Chunk Nation along the Wisconsin River, right there. And so it was kind of a love-hate relationship between the two, because they needed us for it to generate the income from the tourists, but they also the racial part was quite evident as well. So that was growing up, but the thing is that even when you grow up within your own clan, let's say your own village, so to speak. Even within that, there is the differences, because people, Native people, will sometimes not accept someone who is of a mixed culture or mixed heritage. So, for instance, of all things, Native American. So I'm Potawatomi and Ho-Chunk, but I'm also Mexican Indian. And so it was the Mexican Indian part that the Native Americans didn't like. And the Caucasian kids in school didn't like any part of that. whether it was Ho Chunk, Potawatomi, or Mexican Indian. So, and so what I'm trying to say is that, even within our own comfort groups, we sometimes focus on the difference. And so, there's those derogatory terms used within, like half-breed or something like that, or the only way that you're a real Native American is if you have a plastic card that says that you're a tribal member of a nation. And so, and really we're the only people in the United States that have to prove that we are a certain percentage. It's almost like a pedigree, that I'm 0.75% such and such and 1/4% of whatever, and that so that you meet the criteria to be enrolled. And that's all set down by the federal government. Now, when we're looking at a nationwide, how I feel about it, it's pretty much the same. From my point of view as a Native American, is that it doesn't matter really what president or what political party is in power. It's pretty much the same. And the feeling about, there's very little trust between Native American nations and the federal government, for good reason. We don't trust them for good reason. And something about smallpox viruses and blankets, that kind of stuff. And so for me, yes, it was nice to see Barack Obama in as the president. Yes, it was. And, but there was very little change for Native Americans, even within that, we were hoping for more, but it really didn't come to fruition. It didn't. And then when we talk about today, and what the federal government is like, chaos is a good term for it, I think. And, the dredging up and maybe it's even uncovering, because from my point of view, the racism has always been there in different degrees, maybe. And so it's really taking the lid off from it and exposing it, and bringing it to light, right? And that's what I think. Do I like it? No. Is it necessary? I think so. If we want real change, if we really want to see one another in our commonality, in the things that bring us together rather than divide us, then I think we do have to address the issues that Donna had brought up. The history of how our government has treated people. We have to face that, and we have to find a way to make amends, whatever that is, right? So, where I live, not where I grew up, but where I live right now in Toma, is a very small town. I mean, I think we're like 2,000 and something people. And that is with the residents who live here full time. But in between, we are smack dab between two military, a full-time fort, which is Fort McCoy, and also the state has a headquarters just south of us for the Air National Guard. And so because of that, we have much more different people in a very small place, because the military brings them in. And so they're here for short periods of time, maybe 1 or 2 years, and then they move on to their next post. Or they're here just for maybe just a few months, and then they leave for their next assignment. This is the one place that honestly I ever found the most diversity when we first moved here. The only place to shop really is Walmart. So I find myself at Walmart to get something for the house that we were just moving in. And I'm standing in an aisle, and there's like 5 people in this aisle, right? And I'm looking and I'm thinking, I couldn't even see this in Madison in one place. There was me, Native American. There was an African American soldier. There was an Amish woman with her children. And there was, Asian. I'm not sure, which Asian it was, but, it was a young woman. She had the insignia for the medical unit on. And of course, then we also had the one of the people who work at the store who was stocking shelves, and she happened to be a Caucasian lady. And so here we are in one aisle representing the whole human race practically in Toma, Wisconsin at Walmart in 2006. So, the diversity is there if we open our eyes to it, and maybe even in our small towns, even in our small towns. I'm going to move on to the next question because this is a little bit more comfortable, I think. In feng shui traditions and other traditions as well, do you know of ways to represent all nations? Like when you're doing a ceremony, or if you're doing something on your own, is there a way through your own traditions that you are inclusive of everybody? And we'll start with Minnie.
Well, in feng shui, we're not really taught a specific, but if I would go to the Bagua, it would be the family section, because they do teach about family being your ancestors, your historical family, but also those that are around you that act as if they are family. In ceremony, I would think one of the best I've seen, it wasn't feng shui, but at the Coptic weekend gathering that we do at Yvette, John Davis will bring out a whole stand that holds flags from every country.
Wow.
And in the audience, yeah, you're not seeing this. It's really awesome. It's in these little small flags, and they're passed out to all the audience members when they come into the auditorium. And then for the healing service, you go up to be healed, but you bring your flag and you put it in the stand. And so by the end of the night, all those flags are up there and they're on this healing stage. So, as the individual people are being healed, the nations are being represented and they're being healed. And that's one of the most powerful ceremonies that I have partaken of for a healing of all nations and a coming together of all nations. And, when you hold your flag and you're in the audience in the healing service and you're just holding it, and everyone's learned what country they have. Now we can do that with our phones and find out pretty fast. But it's just so fun to connect with those countries too. But what a beautiful ceremony that is. And they continue to do that. John feels that's a really important piece that the Coptics do, is bring together the unity of all nations. So
yeah, that would have been something to see. All those flags there. Yeah, thanks for that. What about you, Donna?
For me, so feng shui wise, I thought the same thing as Minnie. Well, family gua, that's what popped up for me right away. I wasn't thinking in terms of feng shui ceremonies. Family gua, what about helpful people too? A little bit. I was thinking bigger, right? To call in help those you're connected with. I mean, we tend to think of that and teach that as being the unseen helpers, the unseen realm, but it could be the whole, could be the earth. No, so I was racking my brain. I didn't, until Minnie was talking, I didn't come up with too much. I was trying to think in the Celtic tradition how that is, how it's represented in that way. I didn't get anything. We'll see what Neshi has. But when you were talking, Minnie, about the Coptics, I remembered the Sufis have a beautiful mandala that they use as a flag, and it has different petals, and they have the symbol for each of the world's major religions.
Oh.
And I found a print of that somewhere, a fabric print of it, and my mom made me a wall hanging of it because I love that so much. And I didn't know it was Sufi. And then I had it hanging in my home years ago, and one of my Sufi friends came over and said, "Oh, that's so beautiful! You have the Sufi mandala, hanging up." And so, I mean, there's the yin yang symbol and the cross for Krishna.
Yeah.
I think there's like whatever the 6 or 7 quote, recognized, right, major religions of the planet are. So I did think of.
Oh, well, if you have a picture of that, or if you can get a picture of that and share that with us, I think it'd be really nice to be able to show people what that is. I'm sure that I bet you anything once we see it, oh, I know that one, but I didn't know. Yeah. So if you could post that in the comments sometime after the show, that would really be helpful, I think. For me, well, I mentioned what my grandpa had showed us is from my Misho about the bouquet of flowers, and for the longest time, my mom would have one of those bouquets, whether it was cut flowers or whether it was the fake silk flowers. We always had something like that, and she wouldn't say that she would create an altar, but it was an altar. She wouldn't maybe call it that, but it was, because it was done with an intention and placing things on there. And so it was a bouquet of many different colors, flowers, and representing everyone. And one of the things that went through my mind when I was thinking about this question is that there's something that always I was in wonder of, is that so many people that I know in our spiritual communities, and they talk about their spiritual guides, right? Is that so many people have Native American spiritual guides, and I think that's great. And I remember thinking, well, geez, why don't I have anybody? Why don't I have a spiritual guide? And it was because I didn't, and then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I call them ancestors. I do. I just didn't realize. When I made that realization, it was like, oh my goodness, that makes all kinds of sense. But we have in our spiritual teams, those in spirit who assist us. We may have, and I know I do. When I was really practicing and teaching feng shui, I have an Oriental Chinese guide who helps me with that. I know that. And so I think that, we look at it from our physical world, because that's how we came into the show, was talking about the physical human race, right? So, but we're here, but those that are our helpers, helping us, standing beside us, standing behind us, they come from all the different races, representing them. Of course, in spirit, what's race, right? But what they do is they represent the knowledge base, the wisdom base, coming from that layer of understanding. And so that's where my thoughts went. And I think that's another way that it unites us, is because we all have these spiritual helpers. And when I called in the directions, like I said, that's the first time I've ever called to the ancestors from the different colors that way. And as they were coming in, it was kind of the one that just made me, take a breath in, was when I called to the West, and feeling the ancientness of those ancestors from Africa coming in, and could feel that. I can still feel it, and how the wisdom in that they're bringing to us, to be able to understand that, and about the creation piece, because that's the energy that they hold is the creation, that piece. So yeah.
Black Panther yet, right? Because that's very up in the consciousness right now. The movie Black Panther and the whole, you know, deep resonance with Africa and having it known in the consciousness now that this is where we all come from. This is the seed of humanity. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and recognizing, acknowledging that wisdom base and that it's here for all of us, and that's what they bring to the sacred hoop. That's what they bring to the medicine wheel, you know. So, Minnie, you were shaking your head when I was talking about that.
That was the most powerful direction for me too tonight. That was enormously moving, and I had a sense of, you know, it's like acknowledging them tonight was very big. You know, that this Indian and two white chicks are acknowledging them is big. It's big.
Right.
Okay. And, you know, because they're not often recognized in a circle like that. So, and to be, and like you said, it's so earthy, and so that creation energy and that really earthy energy of even deeper than the Native American, it was primal.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good word. That's a good word to describe it. Yeah. You know, I want to ask the people that are our audience. I don't know. I'm not looking at my phone or anything. So, but I'm wondering about their feelings about when I called the directions and how they perceived or how they experienced, sensed the different directions. Because even with the North, you know, the Caucasian, what came in for me from the North was about the gathering of information and seeing the number of people that came in with that was and disseminate it. That was the biggest piece, I think, is the dissemination of information, not just written, but of all kinds of information, and how it's retained and cataloged and kept, and kind of reminded me a little bit about almost a feeling of like the library in Alexandria, you know, is that massing that amount of information kind of thing. That's
kind of reminded me of computers. It reminded me of the computer.
Yeah. Yep.
I had a couple comments we can share.
Sure.
No one's chimed in yet what you were just asking, but I lost track here. So there's been a little chatter back and forth. Here's a comment from Rob at the U.S. government's treatment of Native Americans.
The U.S. government's treatment of Native Americans fell well under genocide as defined by the. Yes, it did. It absolutely did. And for many administrations that could have fallen under war crimes for that. Up until even 2016 for Standing Rock.
Yeah.
And I have to say that Standing Rock, for me, when I was there, and even just watching it, you know, through Facebook and that kind of thing, is really the one place in modern times, I think, where we had the coming together of so many different people from different races and different religious backgrounds, and you know, covered the full gamut that came together organically, basically, to support the protection of the water, right? And seeing all those flags, there were over 500 flags there.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Rob, for that, because you know, it certainly does, and that's one of the reasons why and I'm not going to put it on all. I'm not speaking for all Native Americans, but it's just Deanna. Oh, love you, Neshi Lokotz and Donna. What a treat to tune out. You too. Good to see you. One of these days.
Great to see your name.
Yeah. Love that picture for your profile too. That's cool. But that mistrust about the government. That's why I said, there's not one administration, even in my lifetime and since I've been voting, that I would say that it has been a champion for the Native American. No, not really. Not really.
Neshi, what do you think about Canada? What they're doing there?
Hey, it's the top of the hour.
Is it any better?
Yeah.
I think they're nicer about it.
I mean, it looks.
They're nicer about it.
Yeah, they're making it look. They're making it look good, but I don't know if they're doing anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it depends on who you ask, because if you ask an Indigenous person or First Nations person from up there, they may tell you that it's not any different. It's just it's got a prettier cover over it, a more polite cover over it, because there's just as, if not more, missing Indigenous women out of Canada, missing and murdered women out of Canada. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
okay.
I don't know. I think that they also have more elected officials, though, from Native nations. I do. I think that they have
level and
a more representation.
Yeah, and this year too, they have done some national ceremonies within the government to natives, but that can be very superficial.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it's true. That's true. But I remember watching one. It was a woman who was voted in, and I think she was the first one ever. And her people, her clan went in, and they allowed the ceremony for her to be held in the chambers. And that was, to me, that was so moving. It was so moving to have that occur. Making history there.
That's more than we're doing, as far as I know.
Well, I'm going to touch on this last piece because obviously we ran out of time. But most people are not consciously aware about their way of being with other races, people who may look different than themselves. So what do you do, thoughts or behavior to bring people together? How do you regard differences in traditions, culture, and race? And I saw one of Minnie's pictures that she wanted to share. I thought they were pretty good, especially the one about micro.
Yeah, the microaggressions.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's about being aware. I mean, there's a whole show we could do on unconscious bias. Mm-hmm. I don't know how it relates to color, but maybe this way that we're doing tonight. But it's just, it's things you're not even aware of. Like, I remember one time I was with you, Neshi, and I said something about, the dog was running around like a wild Indian. And that's just something that we said in my household growing up. And then you looked at me and I looked at you and you went, wild Indians, huh? And I just realized, that was a microaggression that was unconscious.
Right.
It wasn't like I said that to hurt you, you know?
Exactly.
But when you start becoming aware of those or really thinking about what you're saying, that's a way to change, is just look at yourself and even, read a bit about unconscious bias. And there's tests you can take and things you can do to see where you are. But they're working on this in the corporate world, because Rain has started to write about it and, put it into classes. So they're becoming more aware of it. But, for people listening, they could read a bit about unconscious bias and change themselves.
Because this is a really good graphic for it. And actually, reading through some of those questions, it's like, what are you? You speak English so well. What do your people think about that? I get that a lot. You're really pretty. You're really pretty for someone so dark. I've gotten that one too. Yeah. Your name is too hard to pronounce. Can I call you?
Can I call you? Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No.
I've had.
What do you sound? Wait. What do you? Why do you sound so white? That's it. Why do you sound so
Yeah.
white? That must be the language piece. You don't act like a normal Black person. I kind of got that from a Native American kind of perspective. It's like, well, you're not like the rest of them. I don't know what that means. You're not. See, you're not like other Muslim people.
Right.
Where are you? Where are you from? Where are you really from? No, where are you really from?
Where are you really from?
I know I had one lady one time, I was just a teenager, was trying to tell me that I was Spaniard. You're not Mexican, you're Spaniard. No, I'm not. Really. I think I know who I am or what I am. Believe me.
Oh, Lord.
That was a really good graphic. Thank you, Minnie, for sharing that. And I don't remember the other one you had.
Oh, it was just a little bit more about how we split everyone up and, you know, besides color, you know, gender is another diversity, all the diversity pieces that we use, that, you know, 0.02%.
Yeah.
How we're different. Yeah.
And I like the use of color on that one.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I don't know. You know, we probably just kind of skimmed the surface of this, trying to make a point that we're really more alike than we are different. But we need to, when we make our awareness about our differences, to rather put it as Minnie had about, you know, being aware of, what did you call it, Minnie? About the microaggressions, about
Unconscious bias.
Unconscious bias. That's it. Thank you, Donna.
Unconscious bias. Yes.
Because that doesn't make any difference what race you are, what color your skin is, because we all have it. And if we can take a look at it and say, oh, I did do that. Or
and there's a reason the word unconscious is in there, because you're not conscious of it. If you were, you would stop doing it. So really, you have to dig to see where the unconscious ones are, that, you know, you were raised that way and it just comes out of your mouth and you're like, you never thought about it before.
Right, right.
I would just add being sensitive. You know, for me, that's the biggest piece. What do I try to do? I just try to be sensitive to whoever's the underdog, or whoever's in the minority, whether I'm in the grocery store, whether I'm at church.
Right.
And they, you know, just be looking out, you know. And it's a great way it's a great way to use your gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Just
and to put yourself in their shoes. And how would you feel if someone said that to you? You know,
little things like saying hello, making a conversation. You know, where am I needed? Oh, here, because, you know, here's the person that feels
uncomfortable.
So let me do that. And oftentimes it's, you know, it's someone who looks different, or just from a different.
You know, and even if I can say something about the racism piece, is that when you see someone who is being bullied because of their race, and I know it can get kind of scary, because, you know, you have to kind of protect yourself too from any kind of violence, but, you know, they're usually by themselves. Even if you just go over and stand by them, a lot of times that diffuses the situation. You don't even have to say anything. Just to make sure that, you know, when they're getting ready to leave, is to make sure that they're with somebody, that you need to dial 911 for them, you know, that sort of thing. So they don't feel alone.
Right.
Yeah. There was something else I was going to say about that, but that's, you know, to me, that's the most, I think, important piece, is because in our silence, in our quietness, some people take that as an agreement.
Makes us complicit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your silent agreement. And so if you're not silent about it, or even if it's just to go stand by them, you know, that makes your voice heard. And being kind to someone else in the same stroke. So I'm going to wrap this up, because we could probably go on for another 20 minutes or more with this. So I just want to thank everybody for hanging in there with us with this discussion. And we might even take another swipe at it at some point, and maybe even take it a little bit deeper into the hues, right? About color, go deeper into the hues. But I also wanted to cover something that is important, and that is, where do you find us in what we're doing, and getting an update on what's available. So, Minnie, do you have any classes or anything coming up?
I do actually have a feng shui internship training that's happening beginning April 16th. So if anyone is interested in learning more in depth about feng shui, this class would be 3 Mondays all day, and then some final sessions of feng shuiing each of the students' homes. So that will be going on for April, May, and into June. And I have a Shinrin walk in Davidson, Michigan on May 5th with their recreation council group there. So you find out information about that on my website, minniekansman.com.
Cool. Going to be good stuff out there for you. And Donna, what's up with you? What do you got going?
I got Collage Quest going. I'm doing multiple collage workshops, mostly local right now. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can follow me on Facebook. My page is Collage Quest on Facebook. And if you want info about other services I offer, you can check out my website, which is healinginteriors.com.
Collage Quest. Talk about having fun with colors and images, and also with spirit. Those are good classes. For me, we just published the Star Nations magazine, the March issue. We published that on the 11th, actually, and gearing up for the April edition. But the March edition, I think you're going to really find some really interesting articles about dolphins and about the equinox and a whole bunch of other stuff in there. And we also have a Star Nations Academy class coming up. I'll be teaching a class called Bequeathing Sacred Tools. And we're going to be doing that online on Facebook through Be Live TV on it's Monday the 26th, March 26th. I think that's the date. And so you can join us by just going to, you can go to the main fan page on Facebook for Star Nations, and at the events, you can click on that and get your ticket there. I think it's $12, and it's a 2-hour class. And we're going to be talking about all of our tools, all of them. Your primary tools, the crystals, the feathers. Going to be lots of them.
Yeah. And actually, it was only $10 is what I paid.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, good.
Yeah.
See, that's such a deal. $10.
Deal. It was a deal. I was like, wow.
Well, Eventbrite's. I thought they were going to be adding on their $2 thing on there, but maybe they didn't. Maybe it was good. Good. Excellent. Good to know. So with that, what I want to do is also thank all of the ancestors that came in to be with us tonight, those from the east and the south and the west and the north, for being with us tonight and helping us to articulate and to understand that we're more alike than we are different, and to focus on the commonalities, but to understand that slight difference that is between us and what that brings to the sacred hoop, to the medicine wheel for all of us. So with that, ladies, thank you so much for bringing your wisdom and your knowledge. And next month, you'll see us back here on the third Thursday of the month for Spirit of Color. I had to stop and think there for a second. I almost said the last Thursday. So with that, thank you for watching and being with us, to our audience and those who will be looking and watching through the video, the recorded show. We appreciate that. And we'll see you next month. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Night.